Hey everyone, this is Dr. Coach K coming to you live on all the social platforms. And starting today's topic off with the prosperous soul. It's a continuation from the last session I wasn't able to finish. This is the rich get richer and the poor get prison ideology, class, and criminal justice critical analysis chat session where I do some coaching, training, and mentoring and educating on some social issues in our world today, currently using references all over the place from spirituality, biblical aspects, Christ, social influences, celebrities, role models, history, you name it. I could toss anything out there to build a case or to chat about the things that we can compare and contrast. I also have the expert coaching, evoking excellence in others, James Flattery. I use his manual textbook is because, when you're a Christian, they talk about discipleship. And in the 21st century, we call discipleship coaching. And coaching is in our 21st century. Discipleship is when you take someone in, coach them all the way to the destination, mentor them, coach them, train them. You're the Merlin or the expert, and they're your apprentice, or they're your disciple. A lot of martial artists have this completely part of their culture in a way that people are literally just common knowledge falls into the role playing of you're my teacher and I learn from you, good, bad, and ugly. I know that you're an expert. You have a gift. You have a spiritual gift, and I would like for you to pass your legacy on through me. The way you've mastered it, the way you've learned how to heal through people. When you have that kind of honor and respect for someone, yes, you might get in arguments, you might go through things, but at the end of the day, you know your role. You know what role you play. Even if you become a master yourself, you still know your role when it comes to the discipleship relationship or the coach relationship. So I always want to remind people I have 100 textbooks in this curriculum called the Game Changers Championship, where I'm coaching every step of the way, giving you guys my insight and having a discussion. It's not like I know it all or all be in all, but it is that expert relationship where I've mastered this over the years. And it's a discipleship slash apprenticeship slash, coaching a team where you want to get victories. You want to turn your struggle into prosperity, into paradise, into the light, darkness from the light, learning how to go through those continuums and spectrums. These are the things that we go through in our society. Well, you can tell our society is underdeveloped when they have low functioning, low vibrational, low performance, in their conduct, in their behavior. And so you don't get entangled into that low vibrational, underdeveloped. Well, we don't call it morality in the 21st century. We call it performance level, where you're masterful. That's why I always shift gears and talk about martial arts, because they're timeless in their constructs, from ancient practices to the modernization of this society. When you think about martial arts and the dojo, you think about the school of mastering self-government, your movement, your body, and how to use it without causing harm, but to stay elevated and stay alignment is centered. These are the same things when we talk about conduct, behavior, putting yourself at the right place at the right time, learning how to be solution minded, learning how to do win-win mediation, interaction with low vibrational, underdeveloped performers in life. That's sometimes in prison systems, your authorities, police officers, hard or difficult people, that resistant people that has not overcome or managed stress triggers well. They're very low performers when it comes to interacting with people, interacting with conflict, interacting with diversity, interacting with just knowledge. Some people can't digest the truth when you give it to them, whether it's science, biology, or just sexuality, anything. Some people just cannot handle the truth. They love living in their fantasy, and that's how they cope. And so sometimes the truth is a rude awakening and it's hard to digest. And so they're very underdeveloped because it's not a bad thing to live in a fantasy. It's not a bad thing to construct a beautiful world and you get sheltered in it. What's bad is when you are unequipped, untrained, and not prepared, or you haven't mastered all the elements of creation when God or the creator gives you a divine assignment and divine appointment, and that's called adaptation, survival, that's called elevating, that's called compassion. These are the institutions of love that keeps us eternal, infinite, and an immortality in this natural world, this manifestation of a natural world, right? So we talk about all these things in these discussions, these chat sessions, these coaching sessions, right? Where I empower you and we build an empowerment culture because then you become a master of empowerment. Then you become a master of motivation. Then you become a master of self government, group government, right? Where you learn how to be a transformative leader and to be a transformative team player among team members in and out of a team assignments. And we're talking about military and how they move through the earth as operations, right? And these special ops learn how to get victory because they've mastered the skill and their craft and their self discipline. And these are the same principles and values that martial artists and ninjas and these special ops are very aware of. Well, everyday people may not be aware of that if they don't have that discipline from childhood. So they're very underdeveloped in their conduct, in their behavior, because they did not grow up with these structures in their life, right? So this is where we have a different level of underdeveloped people or another form of poverty in development of conduct. When you talk about narratives, some people can tell a story that it's very full of life that you can almost feel like you're there with them. And that's called a very masterful story. And then there's some stories that's very undeveloped and they just get straight to the punchline. And a lot of times people call that underdeveloped stories and they call that one dimensional stories. But still, it's just the effort put forth that keeps people moving forward. So I'm not trying to discourage you if you're the person that's underdeveloped. I'm trying to motivate you to hunger and thirst and start walking in a sense of knowing that it's time to develop yourself into mastery, to get involved with building these muscles in you so that you can achieve the highest potential of who you was created to be. And that's what we're talking about, the prosperous soul. That's the highest level of the soul, is when it's internal and externally prosperous. Like in this world, the highest level of the soul is a rich person with a lot of materialism. These materialisms like houses, cars, airplanes, yachts, and currencies, they call it a material power in the finite timeline, because you have the authority to influence people, because you have resources that they may need for basics in life, for safety, for security, for self-esteem, for to feel belong, to feel accomplished. These are the materialism that give you that external gratification, and that is what makes a worldly person feel very achieved. And they call that rich person, affluent person, powerful person, right? When you're not developed internally, but you're developed in the world. See the difference? So now when you don't have those things, you're underdeveloped in the world, right? But we know the world passes by. It changes like all the time. And so to keep up with the trends of the world changing, like weather, you have to learn how to move in those changes. And that is like getting a house and there's no stability. You got to pick up and move every 2 months. That's how it is in the world. To keep up, it's a lot of wear and tear on your soul, because you're trying to keep up with the Jones. So this is what the symbolism is: keep up with the tornadoes of the world's materialism, right? Because you can get that easily taken away from you. So let's go on the other hand, the prosperous soul versus the worldly soul. You have the prosperity of internal wealth, internal riches, internal mansions, internal materialism that you developed, and that produces the well mastery of conduct, behavior, and people call that moving energy. Okay, we're not calling it morality. We're not calling it ethics. We're not calling it integrity. It's like the martial artists and the ninja. You know them by their what? Their conduct, their craft, their mastery, right? How they masterfully, gracefully interact in the natural world. And that's the prosperous soul. You know they're mystical, they're divine, they're one with God because they're supernatural. There's something about them that exceeds the worldly system, transcends from the natural materialism. They walk in the room and the room glows, or they walk in the room and all wicked and evil and violence pause, right? That's masterful, internal development. And so they achieve a higher, right, ownership of inner materialism. So you have this Christ conversation that says, in my Father's house there's many mansions, and I go prepare a place for you. And that is the internal mansion. that produce an external mansion. These are the concepts that we're talking about: masterful, infinite manifesto. Now you no longer are part of the finite results and outcomes and cause and effect, but now you're part of the infinite timelines, cause and effect, and infinite realism. And this is why we have these conversations, whether we can digest them or not. It's learning the motor skills of it, learning how to build from that. That's why we read journals, because some people have developed these things and we learn from these things. But you can't learn new habits if you never perceived it, you never witnessed it, you never know of it. So you got to become a witness of it first. That's why it reminds me of playing basketball or being an athlete. I had to see a demonstration of a masterful conduct. I had to see a demonstration, even if it was with my naked eyes or my imagination. I had to conceive it to be able to develop it in me. Okay. And that's what these chat sessions is all about. Whether it's one person that listens to it or no one listens to it, as long as it's been conceived, right? It's like having a child. Whether that child grows up to be a famous person or not, as long as that child is conceived, it takes a life course. Same thing with words, same thing with uh, doing things, trying things. You might get rejected, you may not go anywhere with it, but as long as it's conceived, it takes on a life cycle. Whether it's finite or infinite, it takes on a life cycle. So let's begin. We're going to talk a little bit about chapter 1 on page 37. If it is to be, it is up to me, by William H. Johnson. This is Dr. Cindy Trim, and we're going to do some more work out of her textbook, The Prosperous Soul: Your Journey to a Richer Life. So and I'm going to start doing a reading, and then blessed are those that read the Word of God and hears of the Word of God. So some people think that this is the only way to receive inspiration. Word of God is through the Bible. The Bible is a inspiration word, and so are we an inspiration word. So we have to read. They used to do readings in ancient times where they would go in and read it out loud so that they can conceive it. See, that is all about life. It's conception, how to birth and create things, to be in the likeness and the image of God, in the image and likeness of our Creator. And our Creator is a creator. They create, or he or she creates. It creates. The living creates, right? On many levels, many dimensions, right? Many platforms. But we always eternally, infinitely learning to create like in the likeness and image of our Creator. Okay? Of the one that created us. So it goes on like this. A journey of 1,000 miles begin with a single step. This is the day of your small beginning, one step toward a bold new way of life and living. Now I realize that most of us don't want small change in our lives, especially if we have lived on this earth for a little while and aren't completely happy with where life has taken us. We want big change and we want it now. We want to quickly rise up on the ladder of success. Although even the ladder of success must be, sorry, I have to adjust my glasses. Sometimes I can use them and sometimes I have to take them off. Okay, so where was I? Okay, we want to quickly rise up the ladder of success. Although even the ladder of success must be climbed one rung at a time. We want to impact lives on a national and international scale. We want to create innovations that will revolutionize industries. We want to leave a lasting impression on this world. We want our life, our only life on this earth, to matter. We want to leave a legacy that positively impacts future generations. We have big dreams, important dreams. We want to accomplish some great things. And all of that is very, very good. Yet, any significant world changing endeavor begins with but the smallest seed of an idea, sown at the speed of thought, magnified by a single decision, set in motion by one single act. If you look at history, you will see that big change rarely appears out of nowhere overnight. Great innovations come as tiny seeds of insights that need to be cultivated, nurtured, and experimented with until they are brought from conception to manifestations. Books that change the literary world, technological advancements that alter the way we do life, medical breakthroughs that eradicated disease. Often these notions face thousands and thousands of failures, okay, before success happens and was characterized as a breakthrough. Thomas Edison and the light bulb provide a great example. He did thousands of trials before he found a filament that would last for more than a few seconds. When he finally did, the world was seen in a whole new light, literally. Small companies take time to develop and grow into large multinational corporations. They often require years of investment while only showing small incremental increases or what may appear as devastating setbacks before suddenly dominating the marketplace. As with all great ideas or products, so it is with our spiritual growth and development. One single activity alone is not a guarantee for success and prosperity. It is the accumulation of a series of right choices that turns the tides of failure into fortune, striving into thriving, and setbacks into success. We fail to maximize our potential because little things that can stabilize and prepare us for greater things are either overlooked, disregarded, despised, or viewed as unnecessary. In fact, I would go so far as to say that there is nothing more dangerous to a great idea than success that comes too quickly and easily. Think of it as building a beautiful, lavish house on a weak foundation with inferior and insufficient plumbing. While needs are small and water flow is minimum, the people in the house can get along well enough fixing the occasional drip, putting out buckets to collect water, or tightening a leaky connection now and again. But what if the demands of the house suddenly require greater water pressure? Where there were drips before, there will now be jets of water shooting out in every direction. Success brings its own demands and pressures, spiritual, emotional, intellectual, professional, and financial growth requires that we exchange our childhood scripts for adult strategies. If not, we give away valuable personal power, losing time, energy, money, and opportunities. retrofitting a home is more expensive than building it right the first time. Likewise, many of us build our lives without much forethought of what it will take to grow into the measure of the stature which belongs to the fullness of Christ. We allow poor habits to undermine our foundations. We neglect to count the cost of completing the good work God has begun in our lives. We begin choosing the furniture before we have a blueprint. I pray this 40-day study will help you create a blueprint for your life of your dreams and then lay a solid foundation to build it upon. So we're going to stop there because the second session is about pace for the race. But today we're talking about conception. So we are going to move through what we just read, okay? What I wanted to highlight and talk to mastering conception is what is that in the internal world? Like in the external world, we kind of are conditioned to know how to conceive things, build things, and then masterfully, mature it. Like cooking from being a cook to a chef, we understand that we have ingredients, and those ingredients have techniques of blending and how to blend, and then what to do after you blend those techniques is how to cook it or how to prep it or how to develop it or elevate it, right? And then we eat it. And that is the life cycle of being a cook to being a chef and mastering those things and the repetition that happens in that process. We understand that because that has already been what we called mastered in our society. It's a craft, it is a skill, okay? So, as being an athlete, there's a one time in our society we didn't do sports, right? We didn't have an entertainment industry. We only had a labor industry where we worked 24/7. So now that this big boom of becoming athletes, athleticism, now we have a level of conception where we're an athlete to all the way to being an Olympian, where we've mastered, building and breaking down muscle and then performing in that developed muscle, right? And what we can do beyond just being laborers or workers. Now we're entertainers and athletes that do extraordinary things masterfully just as entertainment or as leisure or recreation, and some of us as a income sport, right? For competition, to win prizes, right? To win money, to win clout, to win favor from our peers and the audience, right? So let's move on. These are the things that we've mastered externally in our environment, right? In the cosmic world of the universe. Well, now let's talk about the internal cosmic world of the universe in our souls. So we have prayer, we have meditation, we have fasting, we have visualization, we have petitioning. These are skills that we have to master. And once we master these skills, we mature these skills. And when we mature these skills, the conduct and behavior transforms us internally. Okay, let me cough real quick. And so we'll get a different industry and condition of these realities, okay? So let me use an example. So we know that the Christ that is in our history masterfully mastered these skills, where at the end of his ministry, his life, he was able to perform on a high level by being one with God, his creator. And that was to resurrect his body, right? To save himself in the incarnate will of God. And people's like, what do you mean by that? Well, it took mastery from internal, right, skills to perform external miracles. That's what they were calling miracles, was an internal skill that was masterful, okay, matured to its highest level of performance, excellence, okay? So he was able to do supernatural things that they had called miracles because he had mastered skills from an internal, right, conception, not an external conception. So what does that mean? In the ancient times, we call it morality, but it really wasn't morality. It really wasn't principles. It really wasn't values, right? It was like a cook. I'll use an example. It's like being a cook, right? In the ancient times, when they were using resources, right? Using trees, fruit, leaves, and the bark of a tree, right? They were just calling it resources for survival. But now that we've mastered culinary arts, right, like martial arts, we've mastered it. We know now we use the whole tree, like um, people do with using the whole animal. You know, unfortunately, killing a tree to heal the body is a low vibrational conduct and behavior, even knowledge. It's a finite knowledge. Now, watch this. That's an external means to the end, is to consume the energy through killing it violently, right? Destroying it, stealing from it, right? But watch this. When we shift gears and become a transformative leader and a transformative team player and start internalizing, we become one with the tree, one with the animal. We do not have to kill it to what? Transfer its energy, to receive its gift of energy. We learn its language, we learn its behavior and conduct, and it shares its unlimited energy as a living being. And it becomes our master or our coach, and we learn of it. See the difference? And so it teaches us how to what? Develop internal resources so that we can what? Produce at a higher performance level. So now we're able to satisfy our hunger through becoming one with a tree. Now we don't have to kill the tree to become one with it. We can coexist with the tree. And so the tree can continue to master and produce in its seniority as an expert and always provide us the guidance and direction of infinite wisdom. Because now it's not dead, it's an infinite being because it's undisturbed, right? It's not disrupted. So once we shift our knowing, our conception, we understand we have a different vision now. A man without a vision perishes. So a man without a vision would kill the tree because it has to survive. It's hungry, it's thirsty. So it feeds off the tree when it's dead. Its corpse, right? It doesn't learn how to become one with the tree without killing it. So you have two sides of the fence, killing something and not killing it, right? How do you find safe space in that reality. There's that finite realism and then the infinite realism. Okay. So now you got masterful chefs that know how to take or request or glean from the tree without killing it now, right? They learn how to prune it, right? Learn how to, take the leaves without killing the life force of the tree. So it can reproduce new. It's like clipping nails and cutting our hair. If you cut it wrong, you can damage it. But if you cut it correctly, you can prune it and it'll regrow. And this is what that conversation is when we talk about conception and how to be life givers and not destroyers or destructors, right? How to be infinite and not finite. See, that's the beauty about free will. We get to choose to, die, or we choose to live. And I know that's a very heavy weighted conversation, heavy lifting conversation. And we're not going to be able to develop that conversation in 30 minutes or an hour. But we can glean from the seeds, the mustard seeds of it, and plant it in our internal garden and conceive new life, right? Step by step. As Dr. Trim was saying in Prosperous Soul, we have these magnificent futures, but we have to micro examine our microseconds in our breath by our consciousness, what we choose to do every step of the way, and understanding why we do it. So I'm not downing on the materialism world or the superficial world. We've grown to be conditioned to survive. And the way we've learned that survival is through power and privilege and domination through colonization, because that was the demonstration that was set before us. Whereas, God never leaves us without a witness. He never leaves us in a world with just one demonstration. So we have that as a dominant demonstration. So it's easier for us to gravitate and be attracted to that, demonstration. But we can learn other demonstrations that is not so popular, not so aggressive, and not so, what I call it, rich. But yet it is very rich on the internal. That's how we see or conceive, new life, as she was saying. So you have to build a vision like Noah did, like a lot of these big influencers do, like Thomas Edison. And then you got to start walking it, running it, galloping in it, skipping in it, right? To get there. Yeah, you may fail a lot of times, but that's the journey of walking the path of infinite life or finite life, because some of us choose a finite path. Some of us choose an infinite path, and some of us choose back and forth, back and forth. They call that lukewarm. Some of us choose a finite and then infinite, finite, then infinite, right? We got a lot of little seeds, jack of trades, but not master of anything, right? So we have a peculiar results. That's why I think, the Christ said, though you might die, yet you shall live if you believe in me. And then he turns around and says, but if you live and believe in me, you should never perish. He was talking about that choice. If it's predominantly committed to walking like 99.9% of your life, you're going to get the results of not perishing, right? Because you saturated your life with it, right? The repetition, you notice when you watch Olympics, these talented people might have been born with a lot of excellent performances, but you see them day in, day out, saturating, committing their life and livelihood towards this on a small level as a child, all the way to a teenager, all the way to full blown. Some of these children exceed their teachers because they have excellent coaches that knows how to impart it. Timing is everything, right? They have what developed something that was masterful in their model, that they were able to share it with their apprentice to give them that upper edge to what be more accurate, quicker, faster, more efficient, more effective, to be double the highest performance. And that's how you get these prodigies, because they had strategies from their experts that cut time. It might took their expert 20 years to get there, but because the expert took the time to develop a new formula and then their apprentice did it, it cut the time in half, right? It wasn't cutting corners. It was no shortcuts because the expert went through the whole life cycle of it. They just elevated it and gave it to the apprentice. And then that apprentice was able to do that life journey half the time, right? It's called multiplication. You double, your results. Okay. So to wrap up our conversation today, we're going to go into the next session with, the rich get richer and the poor get prison. And we're going to go in the session of, coaching people by evoking excellence in them. And then we're going to do another session with the prosperous soul. So we're going to keep continuing to go through it like we did with Strength of Love with Martin Luther King textbook. I have a series, if you're interested, it's called Strength to Love. And it also includes Why We Can't Wait by Martin Luther King Jr. and also his Birmingham letter, jailhouse letter. Those are the three things that we analyze, collect data, synthesize, analyze it, and create masterful tools from it and masterful systems from it, right? We become masters, right? After learning these models, we elevate it like a cook from a chef. They take these ingredients and elevate it. So we learn from the masters and then we elevate it, right? So that's what we do with the textbooks. So if you're interested in doing that study with me and being coached by me, that is going to be a program. It's a $12,000 program because it's $1,000 a month, because we do hours and hours of repetition, prayer, fasting, meditating, studying, conversating, psychotherapy. We do hours of it, like a full day's work, like if you were an Olympian. We work those spiritual, internal, cosmic universe muscles. And the $12,000, the $1,000 a month is mustard seeds for the materialism to manifest it in the material world. See, when you learn of it, you become a master of it, but you got to learn how to move it from external to internal. external to internal, from materialism external to materialism internal, back and forth, back and forth. So what that looks like is materialism with money, currencies, interaction with people, socialization. Okay, these are the components that comes with worldly systems. And then you gotta shift over and do the same thing like a cook from a chef to your internal world. And that's master prayer, meditation, and fasting, and then demonstrating it in the materialist world and demonstrating it in your visualization, lucid dreaming world. See, imagination is a huge component to the cosmic world, internal cosmic world as well. So you got to go always back and forth, like a ladder, up and down, up and down. Okay? So you start with getting a coach. It's like, yeah, you can practice, but you have to compete so that you can see and assess and examine and, evaluate how your muscles is performing. Same thing with currencies and the worldly system. You can be confined and isolated and work on these muscles and become very strong, but then you have to perform in it to see the results of your mastery by interacting with the pressures of realism, infinite realism. You don't have to create anything. You just have to interact with something. And that's where the 12,000 currencies, $12,000 come from. It's the interaction. Can you manifest currencies? When the Christ mastered the transference, they call this mysticism. They also call it other words like alchemy. He learned how to move the power of the word from his internal cosmic world and then transfer it to the material world, where he was able to pull money out of a fish, right? He was able to multiply fish and bread to feed past the number of what that bread serving was. You have a serving of 3 and you are able to serve 15 people, and they're all full and satisfied and gratified. That is mastery of elevation. That's alchemy. That is mysticism. That is the power of God working through you, showing yourself approved by God. So if you are able to live off $1, but able to provide a feast for 30 to 100 people, that is called what we call study to show yourself approved by God. You have pressure. So let's say you have people that is stealing, killing, destroying, but you can go in your prayer life and pray and say, be still. And then when you go outside, these people that if you was interacting with you, would escalate it. But because of your prayer life being so masterful, you're able to move mountains in your prayer life, where when you come into the material world, it is so. And that's where the commander told Christ, if you say my daughter's healed, my daughter will be healed. You don't have to come to me and lay hands on her. See, he was manifesting the word of God into flesh by his faith. His faith had to have evidence. So that meant that man spent his whole life as commander practicing, exercising this manifestation, that he can give a word and his soldiers would walk it out and bring back fruit. They didn't, he didn't have to go and do it himself. He had already witnessed the manifestation of the word in flesh. So by the time he got to his older years, right, there's that conception and then the birth and then the steps and then now the big picture, right? The big vision where his daughter ended up going ill to the point of death, where no doctors could help her because she had an incurable disease. He was able to take those years and years of exercising his what ability, his skills, and put flesh on it when he spoke the word to Christ. He said, if you just speak it, it'll happen. And he said to the man, so be it, your daughter is healed. He gets home, because remember, he didn't go visit Christ. He visited his, what? Soldier. And his soldier took the word, the message to Christ. And Christ took the message back, right? So they met each other halfway. And instead of Jesus going to the full journey, he only had to do half of the journey because the commander was like, you don't have to go all the way home with me. I believe just you giving me your word will be so. And because Christ had kept his word to his Father and his word his whole life, those two chemicals, ingredients ignited and was birthed through conception, a new realism, an infinite realism. And that was what gave that young lady her life back, right? So when the commander went home, his daughter was healed because there were two powerful entities that put two ingredients in a cup and then they mixed it and made chemistry with the word as an energy, and it birthed the cure for that daughter. Same thing with Lazarus when he was awakened from the dead in the grave. Mary and Martha was like, hey, where were you? You didn't show up to lay hands on my brother while he was sick. It's too late now. He's been dead for a week. His body's already decaying and going back to dust and ashes. You cannot use anything now to create life for him. Well, this is what happened. The Christ didn't need a powerful entity. Mary and Martha didn't need to mix faith or mix their exercising skills with Jesus. No, they didn't have to at all, not a little bit, because Lazarus had already a bond with Christ. So his chemistry, his ingredients mixed with Christ was already foreknew. So Christ was able to use the memories of Lazarus and mix them chemically as ingredients, as a cook to a chef, with his word, his relationship and oneness with his father, the creator, or his parent, the creator. And that is what glorified God, showed himself approved by God, and was able to raise the dead from dust, where he was able to walk out the tomb, right, with his body restored, because he had what you seen, Lazarus had already had thousands of conversations with Christ. He had already a lifestyle before Christ that he had been faithful to the Father. So there was already generational cycles of loyalty to believe. So this is where we're going to end for now. This is Dr. Coach K signing off. One love, much love, all love. Peace and blessing to you and your world.